Allow the candidates to introduce themselves, and we'll begin to my left with Jim Booth.
Good morning, and thanks for coming to our forum today. My name is Jim Booth. I have been a single parent for many, many years, raised 3 great children. They turned out well in spite of me. And I'm a grandfather again on last Tuesday, so I have 3 grandbabies. I owned Booth Financial Advisors for 30 years in Duluth. I moved to Duluth in 1981. Spent 22 years in the Air National Guard and active duty. I retired in 1999. Been on several boards, the John Bear Sled Dog Marathon, the Housing Authority, where I was chairman of the board for 3 years, or the 6 years I was on the board. I was on the Charter Commission. I was on other boards too. I coached many, many sports, and I've been very involved in Duluth since I moved here, so thank you.
Thank you. If we failed to mention, I apologize, these are, of course, candidates for at-large Duluth City Council. There are 2 seats available. The 2 top vote getters will be added to the council. Alyssa Hanson.
Hello, good morning. My name is Alyssa Hanson, and I'm running for Duluth City Council at large. I actually grew up in the Brainerd, Minnesota area and moved to Duluth about 7 years ago. When I moved to Duluth, I didn't have a job or a home, so I chose Duluth. I love this community. I've grown to really respect how we grow, and been presenting to cities, towns, and counties for about 10 years in my career in economic development, and I feel like running for city council or becoming a city councilor is probably the best way that I could use my skills and experience to serve this community that I love. With that experience, I have seen how our neighborhoods, our policies, and our businesses can grow together, and I'm excited to see how we continue to do that in Duluth. We've been growing and doing really well, but I feel like we can do better, so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Hobbs.
I'm Noah Hobbs. I'm running for Duluth City Council at large, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming out on a Tuesday morning, for the Chamber and the Duluth News Tribune for hosting this. A little bit about myself. I came up here to Duluth to attend college, bought a house 4 years ago out in West Duluth, been very active in my neighborhood with my community club, with the River Corridor Coalition. I currently sit on a couple of boards. Chum has a master's in public administration from Hamlin, and I think that I'm uniquely positioned to tackle the issues that are facing our community going forward. And very active, and happy to be here today and share my vision for the future of Duluth.
Thank you. Chris Adbach.
Hi, and good morning. I've lived here for 17 years. I'm a writer, I'm a teacher, I've had businesses in Philadelphia. I've been an activist for a long, long time. I've also been the caregiver of my aunt, who died at 101, and my parents, who died at 97. A single parent, a couple wonderful sons. Duluth is a beautiful place, but so is much of the world, and we're not special. We're just regular like the rest of the world. And some of us stick our heads in the sand. We're surrounded by foreign corporations that don't have the good of humankind in mind. Polytech Glencore, Enbridge, even UPM Kemena just took the county for hundreds of millions of dollars. We're in austerity, not just Greece, right here in Duluth. We're experiencing trickle down, 2,000 people homeless, 40% of Duluth is low income. So we need to do better. We need to make Duluth green and just.
Thank you. We'll get to some.
Pass that down to Roger, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Probably won't come as any surprise to any of you that one of our questions this morning would be about the condition of our streets and infrastructure. As we think about ways to pay for repair and replacement, obviously an easy way to go is to raise taxes, but some thoughts on how you go about funding ongoing street and infrastructure repair. Ms. Hanson, we'll start with you.
Great, thank you, Roger. As many of you may know, and drive on our streets every day, they're in disrepair depending on where you are. Some are getting maintained right now. Something that I've been learning about is our budget and what we have and what we have to deal with. And over half of our budget for streets is just paint debt service. So figuring out how to continue to pay that down every year while being able to do maintenance is not an easy thing to overcome. Based on my background and my experience in watching other cities grow, including our own, I feel like one of the best ways to do that is to continue to encourage and inspire entrepreneurs and our local businesses to grow. Building that tax base is what is able to build our budget so that we're able to tackle some of those tougher issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs, your thoughts on street repair?
Yes, it's no secret that our streets and infrastructure is aging and failing. We have a city that our infrastructure is built for a population of 130,000 at one point, and now we're roughly around 86,000, so we don't have the density to support the infrastructure system that we have based off of taxes alone. We should certainly take a balanced approach between, there's probably a few dollars in the city budget, but to think that we can balance the entire infrastructure problem by cuts is ludicrous. We can certainly invest by raising taxes, but if we can't raise enough revenue from property tax increases to solve that problem, it's going to largely come from growing the tax base, continue our economic success, moving forward in that manner, and making sure we have a balanced approach to investing in our infrastructure. It's a good business strategy to have infrastructure that works, be it water, sewer, and streets that don't break your axle when you're driving and having trucking going through.
Thank you. Ms. Osbacher, your thoughts?
Yes, the streets, as they go throughout the city, they don't get better. They are all bad, mostly bad. The big elephant in the room is the federal budgets for about 50% going to the military. We sent a contingent some years ago to expand our air base. Is that what we need to do? We need to try the federal government. We need to be vocal about paring down that military budget. We need to apply the state for funds for our streets. And maybe we will have to tax while we're waiting for those things to appear.
Thank you. Mr. Booth?
The question was, what will we do to raise money for the budget? I'm going to read a quote from a news article back in June of 2014. A certain city councilor might remember saying this: street fees simply replace work that needs to be done during an annual budget process. The present councilors and administration lacks the political will to come up with bigger and better solutions. What I've come up with is a three-part plan. The first part is, since 2008, our present administration has taken our rainy day funds from a negative $1.35 million to a positive $10 million. Fantastic. 2013, the state said that our unassigned fund balance has exceeded fiscal policy, but we keep funding it. We could take part of that money that we keep funding the rainy day fund, which we don't need anymore, put it towards the $2.2 million of the street fees. And we also have a 1% city sales tax that's unassigned. We could take a quarter of that and put it towards it. You have $8 million. I have a solution. None of these people up here have a solution. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I want to ask kind of pointedly or specifically what statistics or other evidence each of the candidates can point to or wants to point to that convinces them that crime is a growing problem in Duluth, or maybe do you feel that crime is an issue being overblown by some right now? Mr. Hobbs, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so crime is certainly always a concern for citizens. The reality is we live in the safest time in the world. Crime is always decreasing. However, we still have the issue of synthetic drugs. That's why we closed down. Last place on earth. It's still coming into our community. Heroin is a very real issue within our community. We have to address that. We need to work with different partners with healthcare industries that are prescribing opiates, which are highly addictive. And when people come back out after they've used their prescription, they're addicted, and it's actually cheaper to get heroin than it is cheaper to get opiates on the black market through a drug dealer. So heroin's more accessible. We have the most pure form of heroin that we've ever had, and it's a very real problem. And we also have to address sex trafficking still, and it's something that keep on the forefront of working with the county or Chief Gordon Ramsey and police. And so we do have to address those three very real issues facing Duluth.
Thank you. Ms. Osbacher?
We have a lot of poverty, and poverty breeds crime. When people can't eat, can't cover their overhead, they will, well, sometimes, some will turn to crime, and the crime rate may rise. We need to institute a $15 an hour minimum wage. That would help. We should even pilot a basic income guarantee, because everybody is not going to find full-time work. That's the name of the game right now. That's the trickle down. And we could pilot it with St. Scholastica or UMD and try it out. They're trying it in Saskatchewan, they've done it in Manitoba, they do it in India, done it in Namibia, in Brazil, and the Alaskans have it with Alaskan Permanent Fund. They do it every year.
Thank you, Mr. Booth.
I think we all agree that crime is out of control sometimes in Duluth, and crime is a social issue. Part of that is the drugs, and there's way too much drugs in Duluth. We can help that with the neighborhood crime watch. Each neighborhood should have volunteers that would like to get active. Just Sunday, I was out walking my dogs at 6:15, and there was somebody trying to break into my neighbor's house. That's scary, because I live in a really quiet neighborhood. We have the police officers are now on horseback and on bikes and are in neighborhoods. I've seen more squads in my neighborhood in the last month than I have in the last 3 or 4 years, which is really great. But the numbers are skewed because we have a mental health crisis also going on in Duluth. And right now that police officers and public safety are being trained in crisis response, and more training has to be done so they can de-escalate the situation when they arrive and not escalate the situation.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you. I actually just had the opportunity to meet with Gordon Ramsay and talk about this issue, trying to get a better grasp of what some of those solutions might be. And when talking about crime related to drugs versus neighborhood crime, I think it is actually quite different. It depends on the neighborhood as well. We were talking about just the neighborhood crime watch in Lakeside, and this last week when they were out doing their rounds, there were over 100 garages that were just not locked and left open. So as an individual who rents or owns a home, that's one thing that we can start doing, is just really being attentive to that. We do live in a larger community. When I was little and lived out in the middle of nowhere, we didn't lock our garage, but it's different now. So that helps, but that's a small piece of it. We did talk a lot about the change in drug use and going from different types of opiates and the prescription drugs into heroin, and how much of an issue that has become with the ability to get methadone and different things like that. So trying to figure out how to tackle that is going to be one of our bigger issues going forward. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Question: last year Duluth was named Best Outdoor City by Outdoor Magazine, certainly a true honor, but the question this morning is, are we putting too much emphasis on things like trails, bike lanes, at the expense of other priorities? Ms. Osbach, your thoughts?
We're putting too much. It's wonderful to see that. Ecotourism is a big part and can be a growing part of our economy. We also need to think of greening Duluth in different ways, though. Perhaps drawing industry here that is not a polluting industry. We have airline industries here that air travel is hugely polluting. It's hugely fossil fuel consuming. Perhaps we could draw industries that make windmills or that make solar panels. Certainly we should be investing in all the public buildings with windmills and solar, and investing in the people. And perhaps we could start a city bank where we would have money to do this, where we wouldn't have to have debt.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Your thoughts?
Well, in 2011, the citizens of Duluth raised the property tax levy by 3.2% for parks and for libraries. And so people of Duluth spoke very strongly that yes, parks and trails are what they would like to do. My question is, this year, with that levy increase, our present administration put $500,000, $500,000 on the budget for parks and trails and raised the levy again. And I don't understand why that happened, because we already have 3.2% levy going to parks and trails. So that would be a question I'd like to ask and find out why that happened, because we can't afford to keep raising taxes for parks and trails. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson.
Thank you. When you're looking at how we balance our investments, I do think it's really important to consider that. But when we're looking at the projects that we're talking about with the best outdoor towns and the different types of trails and just even when you're looking at St. Louis River Corridor and everything that's going on over there, which is very exciting for our community. It does put us on the map and gives us the ability to attract the type of residents that we're hoping to gain to fill the jobs that we do have open. But also it's really important to remember that because we're a proactive city and our city staff and the volunteers across our community are going after these, a lot of that funding is grant funding or matching funding. I think it's really important to remember that for those types of projects.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
And I'd like to echo what Alyssa said with a lot of the funding for the trails, our grant funding, we're able to leverage public dollars and extend them further than if we just invested them from the city on investing in a road, for example. So I think it's a very wise investment into our tourism industry. I've been really involved with the River Corridor initiative and vision, and it's been a very big boom to that area, having the tourism industry benefited from it with half and half tax, and we're now making our city a year-round destination with the expansion on Spear Mountain to have a Nordic ski trail with a snowmaker. We have an ice climbing wall, and those are some of the real benefits that we see year-round that we can broaden our economy and not rely just on the 2 weeks of summer that we have that people can enjoy up in Duluth. And so I think it's a very real benefit to our city, and I think we should continue to invest in our tourism industry.
Thank you. Mr. Booth, we'll begin with you, but each candidate, of course, will answer. But please explain to us your understanding of tax increment financing, and then tell us whether you feel TIF is being used appropriately in Duluth, specifically for projects like the Morgan Park School site and the development at Kenwood and Arrowhead. Mr. Booth, 1 minute.
For the tax increment financing is the developer gets a tax break for developing project in that area. And do I think it's being used responsibly? I think most of the time it is, as long as it has a sunset on it. I wouldn't want a TIF district to go on forever and ever. I think if they have a sunset on the TIF district, I think that if it brings in development, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Specifically those 2 projects that we mentioned, is it appropriate use for the Morgan Park School site and the Kenwood Arrowhead project?
Morgan Park, I believe it would be the Kenwood
and Arrowhead?
Oh, the Kenwood and Arrowhead project. That project probably could stand on its own, but I think the Morgan Park project would, the TIF district is a good fit for that district.
Ms. Hanson?
Thank you. I've actually worked with tax increment financing quite a few times. I've helped a lot of companies understand what that means, and a lot of cities and towns and counties. Done a lot of presenting to those communities to try to help them understand it better. And really what you're looking at is there's a tax base on a property currently. And if you're going to try to encourage investment on that property, you have tax increment as one option. Depending on the type, if it's a redevelopment or if it's a green space, you have the ability to have it be so long or it has to be sunset by state rules. The city then can shorten that if they'd like to, depending on the amount of increment that could be created. I think both of those projects could deem TIF financing a very, very good reason, based on just even the reconstruction that has to happen or the groundwork that has to happen. Generally, tax increment is utilized for utilities and kind of ground below, and being able to make that an economically viable project. Thanks.
Mr. Hobbs?
So TIF, they have the but-for about that financing if they'd be able to do that project. So it's just one of the tools in our economic development toolbox to move projects forward. And they have sunsets when you enter the agreement. There's a sunset on it that says this ends at this date. I know that Morgan Park has a significant amount of asbestos in the old building that needs to to be remediated in a safe manner, so I'm supportive of TIF and that, and also in Kenwood. Those are positive developments that bring unproductive properties onto productive uses that we're paying taxes, and so I view it as a but-for and very big economic driver for those two parts of town.
Thank you, Ms. Osbach.
TIF districts, the ones we've been instituting, the city has okayed recently 26-year moratoriums. That's 26 years of largesse by the city, by the taxpayers. I think those periods should be much shorter. The POLADs are doing the Kenwood development, and I don't know that they necessarily need city help. We have 40% of people living under the poverty line here, and maybe those 40% of us, those hundreds, those tens of thousands, we should find some programs for them and not for the POLADs.
Before we leave that issue, just real quick, maybe 15 seconds each of you, and we'll start with Mr. Booth again. One of you referred to TIF as a tax break for developers. Is it a tax break? Because developers are still paying property taxes, it's just that the money is captured and kept with them. Mr. Booth? How is it a tax break?
It's not a break. They're getting incentive to build their building, or some people said like mediate the asbestos with the public utilities and things like that. I don't know that it's a break.
Ms. Hanson, just real quickly again, just like 15 seconds.
Sure. To me, it's not a break. It is the way to encourage investment on a property that would have a hard time being utilized. It allows those dollars to be captured to help pay for that investment, and then they go right back onto the tax roll. So without that investment, there would be no tax roll after that at that higher investment level.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs?
Yeah, it's certainly not a tax break, and with the but-for test, it does show that there's a very viable economic benefit for providing this tool to a developer to build a property or build rental units, housing units, business, whatever it may be. And so I don't think it's a break; it's an economic tool that the city has in its toolbox.
Very good, Ms. Osbach?
I was at a Morgan Park meeting regarding the new development out there with the school, and people by and large do not agree with it. So there's a TIF district that's going against the wishes of the people of a community. Someone else made that decision outside of that community. And besides, that building is such a solid building, and to think that Duluth is going to allow that to be torn down, and not developed, not reused, is the ungreenest decision that Duluth can make around the building.
Thank you very much.
There's been a lot of discussion in recent months about the western part of our city, and probably appropriately so. A fixture out west for decades and decades has been the Lake Superior Zoo. Certainly has faced its challenges since the flood, and looking forward has a lot of decisions to make. So Ms. Hanson, we'll start with you. What's your vision for the Lake Superior Zoo?
Well, actually, door knocking a lot out in West Duluth right now, and having a lot of conversations. And I've actually only been to the zoo once, and it was prior to the flood, so it's very different now. And what I'm hearing on the doors is to try to figure out how to use that space, keep it accessible so that the community can still go there and enjoy that space, much like a park, yet with enhancements. I know that as the city council is looking at one option or the other, if it's going to, kind of make it a zoo or make it a space that can be utilized in other ways. Either way, it's a millions of dollar project. And so trying to figure out how to do that and keep that in community, I think, is really important. I was surprised how much I heard that the community just wants to maintain and have a zoo still.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Your thoughts on the future of the zoo?
So we certainly need the zoo. West Duluth and the West Duluth neighborhoods lack kind of a crown jewel park like Lester or the Rose Garden, and I think the zoo really fits that niche and is very important for families, especially young families, to go. And we need to have attractions that bring them, so to maintain a level of animals. Also, I think having a more interpretive focus would be good, and making sure that it's affordable so that families can visit multiple times in a month and take their children there and have it be a place that community members can go and experience, fantastic views out there. I know they're building an underpass under 23 that's going to go to Kingsbury Creek, and we can certainly leverage that more with the zoo. And I think the zoo actually is one of the really key issues of the next 4 years, and how do we make sure that that is viable and attractive to families and maintain a quality park out there that we can all gather in and enjoy events and hang out with our families.
Thank you, Ms. Osbacher.
That's a hard question. The zoo, the concept of zoos has changed so immensely over the years. There are plenty of people that don't believe animals should be caged up like that. And on view, wild animals. And yet it is an amenity for West Duluth. So I liked Mr. Howe's idea of an interpretive center versus caging animals. Maybe have some few caged animals. I don't know which one.
Okay, Mr. Booth.
Well, the question was, what is the vision for the zoo? I think outside the box, and my vision may be simplistic, but I think it could be done. How about a rescue zoo? We have people that have funding right now today to rescue wild animals, to rescue farm animals, to rescue domestic animals, and make them healthy again. If we turn that zoo over to these people and brought their own funding into that zoo, and we could even develop a veterinary teaching center for the UMD campus to bring them down there and work with those animals and rescue those animals. You could have those animals, people could see them when they come in and how damaged they are, and then they could watch them develop and get healthy again and maybe adopt them out. I think it could be a very excellent thing, bring a lot of publicity to Duluth and save a lot of animals, and it wouldn't cost Duluth a lot of money. Just outside the box thinking. Thanks.
Thank you. From the zoo to the library, last year there was a consultant report that said our downtown library needed tens of millions of dollars in urgent repairs, and all of a sudden the whole issue just kind of evaporated and went away. First of all, why do you think that happened? And also, what would you support happening with the library? And we'll begin with Noah Hobbs.
Yeah, and so we certainly need a library, and that's not, I don't think this discussion getting rid of that at all. I certainly question if you need to do a $35 million brand new library. The building's not that old. That being said, we should make investments to make sure that it is energy efficient and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars and not just wasting that on an inefficient building. So I would be supporting initially renovating it to bring out standards for weatherization first. But certainly we need a library and we need to change more electrical outlets. Absolutely, what libraries have done, they've changed over the years. We have access to the internet now, and it's more electronic based than paper hardback books, so that's also a concern moving forward. But I'm fine with the building as long as we make additions and improvements to it.
Thank you, Ms. Osbacher.
I think, to answer your second question, I think the library was tabled because people in Duluth, as I go around, they're still upset, saddened, disgusted by what happened with the school district, by the red plan that did not listen to Duluth. So, and tore down buildings and did all the ramifications that went with the red plan. So when the library comes up, people, they're tired of tearing down buildings and building something new, and what we've got will suffice, will do. Let's put money into it. There are the jobs, put money into revamping it. Will cost a lot less than building a new library. And there's plenty of space there. Lots of space can be revisioned.
Thank you, Mr. Booth.
I'll go backwards too. I think the reason it was tabled is that I think it was a mayoral race issue, and I think one of the candidates brought it up and the other candidate said we don't need it, and there was a lot of debate about it really quick, and all of a sudden it went away. That's about it. Should we have the library? It needs to be fixed. It needs to be upgraded, and if that's going to be costly, maybe we should look at renting another space. I don't think we should build. I don't think we need to be landlords. There's a lot of space downtown. If something needs to be done, maybe we could rent some of the newer spaces that are being built. We could rent for a long time for $30 million. I think that the library is changing. It is becoming more and more internet focused and less hard books. I like reading hard books. I don't like reading on a tablet, but I'm probably in the minority. So I do believe we need a library downtown, and if it's feasible to fix the library that's there, that would be my goal.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you. I just want to say too that I believe that libraries are more than books. It's about the community and how the people collaborate and get together at the library, and how much more a library means than just books. The accessibility of them is really important, and I agree with everyone up here pretty much that if it's feasible, reuse the building we have, but we don't know that yet. There is more information that we have to gather. We're still studying those options and costs. I kind of feel like it was a good choice to table it so that we can figure out what the actual cost is to stay in that facility or not. And if we decide to stay there because the costs make more sense, what are the other ways that we might be able to have a higher utilization of that building, or the other programs that might be going in there? Just recognizing that a library is more than just books.
Thank you. If you're elected to the city council, you're going to be confronted with the issue of the need for market rate workforce housing. What are your thoughts on the needs for our community, and then what do you think the city council's role is in helping to fill that need? Ms. Osbach, your thoughts?
People in Duluth can't afford housing. Many. The 40% cannot afford to buy a house. There are 2,000 homeless in Duluth right now. I got that figure from Lee Stewart of Chum. Summer couch surfing. It's not just a question of do we have enough housing? It's a question of can people afford the housing we have? So we have to look at both of those sides of the issue. The city itself, and cities have done this, Seattle has done this. Visionary cities around the country, San Francisco does fantastic things with Citibank and so on and so on. Seattle and other cities have kept their empty buildings, like Morgan Park, like the school, like Central High, and made those into houses, the city itself. That's a possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Booth, your thoughts?
We had a forum over at the Realtors earlier last month, and I learned a lot by going there. I learned that you can't build a house for $150,000 to $250,000 in Duluth, which it was amazing to me. So we have to look at maybe building long-term care centers and for seniors, so that when they want to, they can sell their home for $150,000, $250,000 and move into a facility. Or we have to have people like myself who have a house that's that price would like to move up into the next house, get those ones for sale. There's not an easy answer, because from what the realtors were telling me, it's just about impossible today with the building costs to build a house under $250,000. So I don't know if that's a city council issue. I don't think we can throw money at it, but I think we have to look at seniors moving up and people who have homes now moving up into a bigger home. That would be the answers.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson?
Thank you. This is a personal issue for me. I've lived in 7 places since I moved to Duluth, and trying to find what I would say is more of that workforce housing. Because, you know, we're starting to build more of the market rate, and to me it really is that balance. So how do we have enough of affordable housing, workforce housing, market rate, and the high end? And we do have tools as a city council to impact the development of those. Tax increment, like we were just talking about, is one of those tools that we're able to help figure out how to have more of that workforce or market rate type housing. I think that when we look at rehab of those older homes, that is another tool that can be used. Different types of funding can be utilized to encourage rehabilitation of some of those homes as some of our seniors are moving out into different housing options. If we have to continue to keep tackling that right now, because we're trying to increase our population and increase our tax base. So this is going to be not an easy issue, and we're going to keep trying to find spaces for projects like what's up at Kenwood and other places. But rehab is one of the things that we have to continue to invest in.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
So this is a really big opportunity that we have. We have to add or rehab around 2,000 homes. I think Duluth is very old housing stock. We need to try to make housing for seniors so that they can stay in their home, not long-term facilities, which is expensive for a lot of levels of government and for the family. But if we can have homes that are in neighborhoods where these seniors have grown up, have raised families, and have devoted themselves to the community, I think that's the smartest way to do it. And when they move into these homes, you're going to open up a home for a first and a second-time home buyer, and that's going to alleviate that without necessarily having to create a bunch of new units. We certainly still need to make incentivize competitive market rate housing. Our housing prices in Duluth, especially if you're a renter, are very, very high, and it's costly. We need to have units that are ready to move in for our employers. I know there are several employers that are struggling to attract employees because they can't find a place to live. And so it's, I think, a several-pronged approach of having housing for seniors to open up into competitive market rate housing, increase those developments and units here to drive down the price of rent, and then also where we can have new units within the city.
There's a year-long moratorium on vacation rentals, the Airbnb properties. With regard to property use rights, with regard to safety and other issues, how do you feel vacation rentals should be regulated by the city of Duluth? Mr. Booth, we'll begin with you.
Vacation rentals by owner or whatever the case may be, I think they have to be regulated. I think that the city can pick up their fees, and I hate to talk about fees, but that would be one of the fees that I'd be in favor of. I think they have to be monitored. There has to be standards that they have to be brought up to, and that would bring the hotels and the rentals and vacation rentals all on the same level, and I think that's what we have to do in town, is play by the same rules.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thanks. I do think that there's a difference in between vacation rentals and the hotels and the concepts of Airbnb. So I'm really happy that the City Council took this time to figure out what those differences are and how they could be managed and regulated. I think all of them need to be regulated in some form or fashion because we're bringing people into our community and having them stay somewhere that they're expecting it to be like a hotel. If you're paying for a night somewhere, even if it's on a couch, you're expecting to have safety and security at the very least. And so I was glad that they did that to try to figure out and understand and learn the difference. There's a big difference between some of the concepts like Airbnb versus vacation rentals like VRBO.
Mr. Hobbs.
And they need to be regulated in some manner. What that regulation looks like, I don't know at this point, but I do know that there should be, if you are spending money to stay at someone's house, that should be taxed just the same as a hotel or bed and breakfast in this community, and have a fair playing field. And I think also that there should be a better level of safety. You certainly don't want to have somebody coming to Duluth and God forbid be at a place that is at risk of fire and be under that. So there are certainly some insurance concerns in that regards and protections of people coming in. But what does that look like currently? That would be a broader discussion to have. So I'm glad that they've decided to go that route and wait on making a decision.
Thank you, Ms. Osbach.
Yes, we need to continue that discussion. I think it's entrepreneurial for people to want to do Airbnbs, and I think we definitely need to promote entrepreneurial actions in the city. And I want to get back to housing. There are a couple things. We need to put a moratorium on rent, sky high. We need to stop demolishing houses, condemned houses. Perhaps we need to take a look at rehabbing them. And there are over 100 foreclosures every year. We need to stop the foreclosures. Duluth has never done that, and wrong. We need to help people out so that they don't lose their homes.
Thank you. On November 3rd, the voters will have the opportunity to weigh in on the question of liquor sales in Lakeside. Ultimately, it's the City Council that will decide whether to ask the legislature for authorization to allow those sales. Where do you stand on that issue? And whose views will carry the most weight with your decision? The city as a whole, or should it just be Lakeside residents? Ms. Hanson, we'll start with you.
Thank you. this interesting process because I didn't know that this type of referendum even really existed. So we're still all learning a lot here. But to me, it is exactly what I've heard others talk about at City Council, and why we're doing it is to have a recommendation. And so I think it's really important for voters to know that what happens doesn't mean that it just occurs. And so even though it's a full city vote, I'm sure that the City Council will really pay attention to those precincts that are directly affected and what the vote is there, and that it would have to pass by a pretty large margin to make that recommendation to the state to change so that liquor could be allowed. That would be my take on that you'd really have to look at those numbers even though it's a full citywide vote. Because the history shows that the reason that there isn't like liquor in Lakeside is when they made the agreement to annex. Even though that was a long time ago, that was the agreement that was made. So it would have to be by quite a large margin, I think, for that recommendation to go to the state.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs, your thoughts?
Yes, so my understanding it's an advisory referendum that the whole city is able to vote on, but as an elected councilor, I would certainly look at what Lakeside said, and I wouldn't want Lakeside making a decision for my neighborhood out in 42nd Avenue West if it was something so broad, so narrow where it is affecting the neighborhood. There's certainly pros and cons to both sides of it, and I would take my direction from those actually living in Lakeside in those precincts.
Thank you. Ms. Osbach?
I live in Lakeside, and I've heard possible constituents say they really didn't care one way or another, and then others are very happy with the status quo. That this was put on the ballot is surprising because some of the current city councilors were not supportive of putting a move to amend issue on the ballot. So I've heard that there's a major chain, food store chain, that had pressed possibly to put this on the ballot, and I wonder about that.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Liquor Lakeside.
It's kind of nice hearing the answers before I have to speak. It's funny because it's a citywide vote, but two other people up here said they were going to consider what Lakeside said. I, on the other hand, think it's a Lakeside vote. I don't think it should be a city vote. Last time I went before Lakeside, if you remember right, it lost by one vote. One vote. That means get out and vote because your vote counts. If the city-wide says that they would like to have liquor on Lakeside, then as a representative of the city, I would have to go along with the city vote. But I'd prefer to take it off the ballot. I know you can't. And I'd prefer to have it be a Lakeside issue because it's a Lakeside issue. I live in the Heights. It doesn't affect me one way or another. I don't know why I'm voting on it. I think that was wrong. I think it should be a Lakeside issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Chuck, the candidates have been so precise this morning that we're ahead of ourselves, but let's not waste the time that we have and take advantage of here. So if you don't mind, let's slip in a question. Perhaps you can think of another one as well as we talk about this. But I don't think there's any question in our community that our relationship with the Fond du Lac tribe is just badly broken. But they're an institution in our downtown, and they're here to stay. As a city councilor, what do you think we should do as next steps to try to repair that relationship? And I don't know what order we should go in here, but Mr. Hobbs, I can start with you on the question of our relationship with the tribe.
Sure, I think there is some mending that needs to be done, and I think as a councilor go in with a clean slate and have no expectations. I'm not an attorney and I don't have behind the scenes information, but it does not appear that we have the legal standing to continue to go after the tribe, and I think that is also causes ill will. So I would go forward in the capacity that I would have, clean slate and an open mind, and hopefully find an agreement that works for both parties, but understanding that we don't really have the high ground in this scenario.
Ms. Osbach, and your thoughts?
Yeah, I was really surprised that the city took such issue with the tribe and went after them. That is tribal money, it was decided by federal court. We need to definitely partner with the band, with all the bands, to stop the sulfide mining and to stop the oil pipelines and and encourage Enbridge to invest in their solar and wind divisions right here in Duluth. Because we're part and parcel of global climate change, and we can't continue to stick our heads in the sand.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Your thoughts?
When I was at the lake, the West River Rendezvous, I had some tribal members come up to me and ask me this very question. And I said that what I would like to do is sit down with the tribe and ask them if they'd like to do a free will donation to cover the public safety, the fire, the police that protect the casino. They don't have to. It would be totally up to them. And if they did, then I would want Mr. Fredericks and the Duluth News Tribune to let the city know that the tribe is working along with the city and give them all the great publicity that they could. I think if we go in it at an angle as everybody is partners, I think we could get something done. I don't think we can do it if we go tell the tribe what to do. I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I think we go in and ask and see what they have to say. I think we could work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thanks. I actually had the opportunity to go to the Chamber's Let's Do Lunch when Karen Iver was speaking, and had a chance to talk to her after for a while. They have a strong leader in her, and she wants to figure out how to have a really good relationship with our city. I truly believe that, and I feel like we have a real opportunity to sit down and mend that relationship and figure out how we can better work together in the future. And it just takes us going to her and her leaders, as well as them coming to us. So it's a relationship that we have to build, and I think that word can be overused, and we truly have to figure out how to make it a relationship that goes back and forth. And as we continue to do that, I believe that they will figure out a way that they would like to invest back into our community so that they have the safety and security of the streets and the utilities that surround their facilities.
Great, thank you.
I think we have time for one more before
Yes,
before you go to closing remarks. I want to ask each of the candidates where you stand on ranked choice voting. It's something that voters will decide on November 3rd. It's not something that the council is going to decide. But how do you think voters should go, and how would you go? And Ms. Osbach, we'll begin with you.
Well, it's been tried in cities across the country, including in our both Twin Cities. Seems to be working fine. It eliminates the primary, and when I talk with people, intelligent people in this city, they say, what was the primary? What was, 16% of us voted in that primary. What does that say? That primary chooses who goes on the ballot. Wrong. So if we have ranked choice voting, we eliminate the cost of the primary, and we eliminate a lot of questions in people's minds, confusion, and we'd also open up the field to people who want to run other than the two parties. And yes, we are nonpartisan here, but we know who we are. That is kind of a joke. We know who is EFL, and we know who is Republican. And we need other choices than those two parties.
Mr. Booth, ranked choice voting for or against, and why?
I'm against ranked choice voting. I believe in one vote, one person. I think it just confuses the issue. I think that's been proven out when the city council tried to do it. They couldn't get it right. That's why I'm against it. I just don't believe, I believe in one vote for one person.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
I would say right now that I'm still learning a lot and trying to figure it out. What I do know, though, is that we don't have a cost savings. There would still be a primary for the school board election. And the way that the ballot would look, there are 3 different ways that the vote would occur. You'll have a way that you vote for the school board, a way that you vote for the district counselors, and a way that you vote for the at-large counselors. I do think that that makes it very difficult for education, not easy. Even though we keep hearing that it would be easy, I don't feel like it would be easy. And if we were to change that, you would have that distinct difference between the state votes that are going on with the school board, because that's not at the city level, and then the city. So I'm having a hard time deciding. You're hearing a lot about how great it could be, but we're also getting a lot of information about how it's failed and that it's not this 1, 2, 3 easy, simple solution. Right now, if I had to vote today, it would be no. And I do look forward to coming to the Chambers Forum next week because I think we'll get a lot more really good information.
Mr. Hobbs?
So I support it. I think that there is certainly, it's not a perfect system. I don't think the current system that we have is perfect either. I think there will be growing pains and a level of education that's going to need to happen with that, but I think it's a more open, fair, and democratic process. And if we can open and encourage more voter turnout as years go on, I think that is worth the short any negative benefit or any negative effect that there would be short term if we can have a more open and fair democracy, especially local level, and to see where it goes from there. So I support it, but I strongly encourage anyone to attend and learn about it. It is new and it's changed, and some people might resist that, but there are a lot of benefits to it. So I encourage you to attend the Duluth voters and the forums, Chamber and DNT's forum on this. So that's where I stand.
Good. Well, I just want to thank again everyone for being here, especially the candidates. I wish you the best of luck on November 3rd. And I will turn it over to Roger to ask for final thoughts.
Well, thank you, candidates, for your respectful discussion this morning. Good luck on the campaign trail. We wish you the best, but we have a couple minutes for each of you to give us your final thoughts as you look forward to the conclusion of the campaign and perhaps your service on the council. Mr. Hobbs, we'll start with you.
So again, I'm very excited for the future of Duluth. I think we've come a long way, and we have a lot to celebrate in the past 8 to 10 years, and we still have a long way to go. We have a lot of opportunity and a lot of issues facing the city that we can address. And at the end of the day, I think we need councilors that are going to listen. I will always listen to both sides, all sides of the issues if there's more than two. And even if we disagree, I will certainly tell you where I am, and it won't be cloaked in secrecy. I think that we have to have someone that's able to collaborate, and I've proven that I've been able to do that through my various boards, founding the River Corridor Coalition, leading my community club. I think we need someone that's passionate and a very hard worker and willing to go the extra mile to ensure that research has been done, that people can outreach and involve citizens in a process. I think some people get frustrated with government, especially local government, what's supposed to be the most accessible, and they have a closed process. So anytime that we can go the extra mile and meet people where they're at and have them involved, I'm very open to that. And so I really appreciate your support in November, and I look forward to working with all of you in this room next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osbach, and your final thoughts.
Well, we can't continue to sell the future for profit. We must address equity and wealth distribution right here in Duluth. This is not, austerity is not just for Greece. Austerity is right here. And Duluth has been suffering for the last 30 years like the rest of the world. We must take into account environmental degradation and social impacts of our economic endeavors. We live in an illusion of higher social well-being, and really we do here in Duluth. We're no different than the rest of the world. We are Greece. Our task as City Council is to reconcile economic growth, ecological boundaries, and social responsibilities. Bernie Hughes of UWS had an op-ed in the Duluth News Tribune. He spoke of the 7 feet of space that most of us occupy, where we do most of our living and where we do great damage. This is where we decide we can either maintain this earth, protect it, or destroy it along with ourselves. And we need to be thinking of these very things right here in our city.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Final thoughts?
Well, first I just want to thank the Chamber and the Duluth News Tribune for hosting us, and thank you all for being here. I didn't expect such a large crowd, so thank you all for being here. I'm running because I'd like to have a choice. First off, I want to say how nice it's been to run. The other candidates and myself have always gotten along, and we visited before and after it. It's a lot different than the last time I ran for office, where there's a lot of conflict. So this has been a really enjoyable run. I would like to work with any other person up here who gets elected, along with myself. I think it would be very, very easy. But I'm running because I wanted to have a choice. I'm the only different person up here. You can have the status quo, which is to my left, or you can have a choice of somebody who's different than what's in office today. And And that's why I'm running. I have the experience. I've been in this town for over 35 years. I'm not a newbie. Each part of this town has an issue. Lakeside has the liquor issue. Park Point has a street end issue. St. Louis Corridor to the west, we have mental illness issues, we have drug issues. I listen to all the different people, and I try to be as well informed as I can possibly be before I have a decision to be made. But I'm not afraid to make a hard decision. Yes, I'm a fiscal conservative, but that doesn't mean I'm not a social moderate. As long as money is being spent well, I think we can use a lot of good programs for mental health. I think we can use a lot of good programs for housing, but I don't want to see money being wasted either. So I ask for your vote on November the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this. It's really helpful, I think, for us as candidates, but also for the population in Duluth to figure out who we are a little bit. It's really hard to get out there in front of people so that they know who they're voting for, so this is one of the best ways. I am running because I love Duluth and I believe in Duluth. I believe that we really do, as I've said, have the ability to grow together, our businesses, our policies, and our neighborhoods. I do think that we are unique. I don't think we're the same as everywhere else. We have some of the same issues, but we have more homeless than some of the other communities. We have different street issues. We are on a hill. We are not a flat community like some of them in the cities. And we have to work together to focus on how to figure out those different types of unique issues. I've been presenting to cities, towns, and county boards for many, many years on these types of topics and issues that we're talking about, and how trying to help those communities figure out how do you encourage entrepreneurs to keep investing and businesses to keep investing in their community. And there was a time not that long ago where I realized that if I ran for city council, I could be one of the people helping to make that change versus just being one of the people that were presenting how to potentially do it. So that's why I'm here, because I do feel like I've worked with the groups and I know how to make that policy change happen, and that is what the city council has the ability to do, to change the code, to change that policy, to grow our community and build the whole community together towards prosperity. By doing that, we really can build that budget to have better paying jobs, to invest in our street and our infrastructure, and to build stronger community relationships.
Thank you. And we'll leave it there. Thanks to our candidates again this morning. Thanks to our friends at the Playhouse Underground for their hosting us this morning. We'll be back next week on the 13th with the mayoral candidates, but we'll be upstairs on the main stage just to have the accommodations for what we anticipate that should be a larger crowd. Thanks to our broadcast partners who have been with us again this morning. You'll be able to see on My 9 at 7 o'clock this evening a replay of this. Thanks again to KDAL for their broadcast this morning, and of course thanks to our partner, the Duluth News Tribune. Thanks for being with us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.